Alright then my friends, so now we've seen how to create variables, I want to talk about the first data type in PHP, and that is strings. So we've briefly seen strings already, and I'm going to create one in a variable right here. I'm just going to call this variable string1, and I'll set it equal to my email is, and then a space. Now this doesn't make much sense at the minute, but I'm also going to create another string called string2, and I'm going to set that equal to Mario123 at thenetninja.co.uk. Alright, so there's our two strings now. And like we've already discussed, strings are contained inside quotes, and they can be single quotes like this or even double quotes, and we'll talk about the difference shortly. Now we've already seen if we want to echo a string, we just say echo and then the variable name or the string itself, so string1 like so. And if I save that, we're going to see this echoed to the browser, right? My email is. So these strings can contain pretty much anything inside them, any kind of special characters like this, or numbers, it doesn't matter, it's just a string of characters, that's all a string is, okay? So we could use it to store sentences in, email addresses, names, usernames, etc. So I'm just going to keep it like this for now. Now what if we wanted to take two strings and join them together? Well, the way we do that is by using something called concatenation, string concatenation. So if, for example, I wanted to join these two together and echo them out, what I do is concatenate this variable with this variable, or this string with this string. And the way we concatenate two strings together is by using a dot or a full stop. So I could say string1 dot and then string2, like so. And that's going to take these two different variables, these two strings, and join them together. So if I save that now and refresh, we can see my email is mario123 at thenetninja.co.uk. Now sometimes you'll see a space between these as well. That doesn't matter. They don't need to be right next to each other. There can be a space between them. It sometimes helps with readability. If we save that and refresh, it does exactly the same thing. It concatenates the two strings together or joins them together. Alright, so let's do another example. I'm going to say name is equal to Mario. And then under that, I'm going to say echo. And in quotes, I'm going to echo a string directly. And I'm going to say, hey, my name is. And then I'm going to use a dot to concatenate this string with a variable, name. So it doesn't have to be that we concatenate the variable names to each other. We can concatenate strings directly to another variable, or even two strings. This could be another kind of string like this. So this will still work. Let's save that and view it in a browser. So it says, hey, my name is Mario. Let's just comment out the other stuff because we don't need that for the time being. Save it again. Refresh. It says, hey, my name is Mario. It's joined these two together. Okay? Alright then, so let's comment that out as well. We don't need that anymore. So, I did say there was a difference between using strings with single quotes, as we have been doing, or double quotes. Now, the difference is, when we use double quotes, we can directly output variables inside them, instead of concatenating them. So, I could, inside a double quote, say, hey, my name is, and then name like this. So I'm outputting the variable directly inside the string. And PHP is going to look at that and say, okay, I'm going to replace this thing here with the value of that name variable. So if I echo this out now, like so, it should work. Let me refresh over here. And we can see, hey, my name is Mario. So that's working. This would not work if these were single quotes. It does not let us do that. So save this and refresh. And this time, we get the actual value inside the string, the exact value that we write. Okay, so if you want to use variable interpolation, which is what this is called, when we're putting variables directly into the string, we use double quotes. If you don't want that, we can use single quotes, okay? Alright, so let's comment this out and move on. The next thing I'd like to talk about is escaping characters inside strings. So, say for example, I'm going to echo this. And in double quotes, I'm going to say, the ninja screamed, and then in quotes again, wah. Okay, so now what's going to happen? I want this to be in quotes because someone's saying something, It's like in a book when you read speech, they're in quotes, right? But if I save this, it's not going to work as we'd expect. If I refresh, we get a parse error, okay? And that's because what we're doing is actually opening the string here and closing it right here. And then we've just got a random wah after it, okay? So instead of doing this, we can escape the characters. So we can say, okay, we don't want this to actually close the string off. We don't want this to be the end of the string right here. We want to escape this and use it within the string. And the way we do that is before the character we want to escape, we do a backslash, like so. You'll see it turn purple now. So now we know that this thing right here is escaped, okay? And now this will appear in the string when we output it. Same for this one, because that's the end of the quotation. So if we put a backslash in front of that as well, then it's escaping this character. So now these will appear in the string rather than closing the string off. So if we save that now, preview, this should work, and we get it. Sweet. Alright, an alternative to this would be to instead, for example, use single quotes and say the ninja screamed, and then use double quotes to put what you want to output in quotes. Because now, since we used a single quote to open the string, when we use a double quote, that's not going to close it, only the single quote will close the string. So now we're using this other kind inside it, and that's fine as well. Okay, so save that and preview it, and we can see if we comment out the first one at least, that this still works. Alright, cool. Okay then, let's move on. The next thing I'd like to show you is how to get certain characters out of a string. So say for example, I wanted to find the third character, which is over here, right? The R. Or if I wanted to find the 10th character, which might be somewhere up here, then I can do that. And the way we do that is by using square bracket notation. So I could say echo, then the name of the variable, and then in square brackets, if I want to find the first character, and this is important, I say 0. Now, that might seem weird to you. You might think, well, it should be 1. But most programming languages are 0-based, meaning the first index of anything is always 0. So it starts at 0, second position is referenced by 1, and then that is position 2 and 3, etc. Might take you just a couple of days to get your head around that, but it will stick as soon as you've got it. Anyway, so if I want to find the second position, which is this, then I would say name and then 1, and that gets me the second character. So that should be A, or rather this thing here, so A. So save that and refresh, and we get A. Okay? Cool, so that's how we get individual letters or characters out of a string. And if you've ever used JavaScript before, that's very similar. Okay then, so the next thing I'd like to show you is a few string functions. Now, we've not seen functions properly yet, and we're going to talk much more about them later on. But essentially, functions are like bits of code that do things for us. Now, there's a lot of functions built into the PHP language that we can use out of the box. And we can invoke our user function by writing the function name and then adding parentheses or brackets at the end. Okay? So, for example, I could use a function called strlen with brackets. That stands for string length, and it's going to find the length of a string for us. Now, a lot of functions take in arguments right here when we call them. Now, an argument is just a value. It doesn't mean that the function's having an argument with something. It just means that we pass in a value, and that is the argument. That's the technical name for it, okay? You might sometimes hear them called parameters, but actually they're called arguments when we pass them into the function right here. So what we want to do is tell this function which string we want to find the length of. So we pass in an argument, which is that string. So, for example, I'm going to pass in this variable as an argument right here. So this function will then look at this variable, this string, and find the length of it, how many characters are in it. And we want to echo that to the screen, the result of it. So we say echo string length of name, okay? Save that, preview this in the browser, and we say 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that works. Okay, so next I'll show you another function, and this is going to be echo and str2 upper. So you can probably guess what this does. It takes a string and converts it to uppercase. So I'm going to pass in the name variable again and save and refresh. and we see Mario now all in uppercase. Alright, so let's do another function. So comment this out, and the next function is going to be echo, and then string to lower, and we're going to pass in name again. Now it's already lowercase, but if we change this to an uppercase M, then it should do the trick. Save that, refresh, and we see it all lowercase now. Alright? Okay, so let's do a couple more, or rather just one more. We'll say echo, and then str underscore replace. And then what this does is replace certain things in a string for us. So say for example, I wanted to replace every M with a W. Then I'd use this function to do it. Now this function takes in not just one argument, but 3 arguments. And these arguments are as follows. First of all, a string to say what character or what series of characters we want to replace. So in my example, I want to replace any M's. So I'll pass that in as the first parameter, or the first argument rather, then a comma, and then the second parameter. And this is what I want to replace it with, which is a W. So every time there's an M, I want to replace it with a W. And then finally, the third argument, which is going to be the string we do this on, which is name, like so. So now this should look at this, and it should replace any M with W, and then we're echoing the result. So if I save it now and refresh over here, we should see Wario. Okay, cool. So there we go, my friends. That is strings in a nutshell. They can be enclosed either in single or double quotes. We can concatenate strings, use variable interpolation in double quotes, and we can also escape characters and use functions on strings as well. Okay, so in the next video, I want to take a look at a different data type, and that is numbers.